Hello friends, welcome to the techwithsoft. So today we are going to cover Junit Mockito with Spring Boot. So that is a normal, right? Every company will ask you, like after writing the source code, right? We should write some test cases for every layers that we have seen in previous sessions, right? When we developed a Spring Boot application, right? We created a controller class, we created a service class, we created repository classes, right? We did some piece of code there, right? So for the same we have to write some test cases also. If your test case will not be written, that time your code will not be deployed over the we can say like we have a different branches, right? So that I can say like dev branch, clone branch, right? So your branch will go from local to dev to clone, right? If your test case are working fine. If any of the test case, if you are not implemented, right? How does it check that also I will let you know. But right now we have to understand that what is a Junit and Mockito and why do we use it. So we know that every time whenever we do write some source code, we have to write some unit test cases for it to check the functionality of each and every piece of code, right? So implement that Junit Mockito, we have to see some theory, then we will go with the implementation. So we will use some annotation, okay? We don't have to add any extra jar for it. When you will create your project, right? When you will add the wave, right? With the wave itself, you will get Junit and Mockito by default. You don't have to add any extra jars for them, right? Now let's go to what content we have to cover. So first thing that will come here, that annotation that we have to use, extend with annotation, right? So Junit is nothing like a kind of Junit and Mockito. It is a combination of some kind of annotations only, right? So we have to understand what is the annotation we have and how many annotation we will use. So first annotation is extend with annotation. It is a class label annotation, right? It is a class label annotation. So that means it will keep on the top of the class. What does it do? It is an annotation in Junit 5. So we know that Junit 5 is the latest version, also known as Junit Jupyter also. So Junit Jupyter that allow you to register customer extension for your test classes, right? That allow you to register customer extensions to your test classes. Extension is here. Junit 5 provide a powerful mechanism to hook into a life cycle of the test, allowing you to add additional behavior, right? And such as a dependency injection, resource management, conditional test, execution, etc. So these are the kind of definition of the extend with. That could be a class label annotation. I will tell you where to use and how do we use, right? Then one of the important annotation called inject mock. Inject mock is also one of the important annotation which is used to create instance of your class. Whenever you want to create instance of a class, we have to use at inject mock class and automatically inject mock annotated with the at mock into it. So inject mock is also one of the annotation that is used to create instance, right? That will use with the mock only. So we have one more annotation like mock, which is also one of the important annotation. It is an annotation provided by the Mockito that create a mock instance of your class or interface. So if you have a class or interface, right, if you want to make mock object, right, mock means kind of dummy objects, then we will use @mock annotation. And here we have like @inject mock that will use for create the instance of your class itself. And automatically it will pass this mock inside it only, right? And then we have some annotation which could be a class label annotation like at before each and @test. So @test means we will keep on the top of the method, right? So suppose if I'm writing a 10 different methods, in every method if it is annotated @test, that means I have a 10 different test cases, right? Before each means this annotation, if I will keep on the some method, that means this will execute before every test case. So how can we know how many test cases I have? So I have to check how many method is annotated with @test annotation. So if it is annotated 5 or 10, right, that means I have that much test cases. Before each is an annotation that will execute before each and every test case, right? Mock MVC what? Mock MVC is again, it is one kind of class which is simulate HTTP request. So we know that we have a different type of HTTP request, right? Get, post, put. So it will simulate with the HTTP request and what is the endpoint we are passing it, right? So that is a mock MVC class where that's your control, behave and response. Verify is a one method, right? Status code, response bodies, header, something like that. So it does verify. Mock MVC, what does it do? It does simulate the HTTP request test your control behavior and the response, and verify the status code, response, bodies, header, etc. That is the main purpose of this mock MVC, right? Object mapper, it is also one of the class that do we use. Object mapper is a core class from the JSON library, right? We don't have to add any third-party jar for it. It is by default come with the Spring Web itself. So it is a JSON library that is used to convert your between Java object to JSON object. So I will tell you how to use, where to use here, right? So that is the one class called object mapper. It is also one of the important class, right? Other than that, we have a like mock MVC builder also. Okay, mock MVC builder is utility class in Spring Test used to manually build a mock MVC instance, giving you more control over how your control or Spring context in tested, right? So we have mock MVC class, mock MVC build utility. It is a kind of utility class only, right? That I will tell you how to use it. So you need to remember @mock MVC, @object mapper, right? @test, @before each, @mock, @inject mock, right? Other than that, we have some other annotation also, like we have verify, which does verify. It is not annotation, actually it is a method, something like that. We have verify, we have assert equal, right? Assert equals, assert that, right? Assert not null. So we have n type of assert, verify, assert equals, right? Assert not null. So we will look that step by step whenever it will come in our implementation. Okay, so these are the things that you have to remember, that inject mock, right? @extend with, @mock, @inject mock. Now let me tell you one thing here. Many people having a confusion. What is the confusion? They do not know where to use @inject mock and where to use @mock. So these are the kind of confusing here. So let me tell you where to use what. Let's say I am writing I have one controller class say like my controller. Suppose I'm just giving one example, my controller, right? Inside this my controller, what I will do, so we know that controller will use service only, right? So I will use, right, that is employee service, something like that, employee service, that is a e-service, suppose like that, right? E-service. Now here we will use two things. What we will use? First we will call that employee service method, and then we will write the my control method also. So suppose here I am creating one method like save. That method is from the employee service only, sorry, employee my control only. That could return the void, suppose something like that. And then here I am using one method from the e-service. So what I will do here, I will write e-service dot some method which is having a like suppose create or something like that. Right, so it is a kind of structure where we have auto-wire on the top of it, right? That is inbuilt. Okay, so one thing you have to understand here, we have to create a one test case for controller class. Controller is a one class. For that I have to write test cases. Inside this controller class, what I'm using here employee service. So if you are writing the test case for the my control class, right, then my control class will be inject and employee service will be mock. Because here I will create object of the my controller and I will mock of the employee service. So that you have to remember always, if you are writing that test cases for any of the class, right? So the class for that you are writing test case, right? That class always will be inject mock. So for that we have to use inject mock, or the class which is using as a reference variable inside it, right? As a reference variable, for that I will use mock annotation. Okay, because we are going to use it. Right? Now let's come to the code part. So I have written already that one code, employee controller.test. Let's understand here what we are doing. First, employee control test we have created. So first of all, you have to understand that how many test classes we have to create. Suppose I have this kind of code, right, where we have like controller, we have like service, we have like entity. So remember that the classes which are having a setter getter, right, we do not write any test case for that. So there will not be any test case for employee class. There will not be any test case for DTO class, because DTO also look like a class which will having a setter getter only, right? but that is used for different purpose. So we will not write any test case for employee DTO, we will not write any test case for employee. We will write test cases right now for the controller and service, or if you have some other mapping classes, we will write that for them also. Even for DTO, sorry, for repository also we will not write test cases, right? If it is having some anything, that time also, that is depend on the company to company. Like some of the company may not allow to write the test case for the repository, so only you have to write the test cases for controller and service right now, which we have. Other than that, if you create any other class, right, for that also we have to write test cases. So first we will write the test case for the control class. So we have an employee controller, and employee controller is doing what? It is using employee service here. So test cases will come from your source code itself. So you have to understand that what you are using and how you are using, and then the same we will use for the write the test case also. Like for example, here I am using that create method. Create method is using what? It is using to calling the employee service. What employee service is returning, what it is passing. So employee service we are calling a create method, which is taking employee object as a parameter and is returning employee object as a return values. So that is also important part. We have to understand that what the method we are calling, what it is taking as a parameter and what it is returning as a reference, I mean as a return value. So that things we have to keep in our mind, and according to that only we can write the test cases, right? Now let's come to the test case class here. See, suppose I have how many method we have a create, fetch all employee, right? Fetch by ID, update employee, right? Delete by ID. So for every method I will write the test case. So we are starting one by one. So first we are writing the test case for create only, right? Now let's come to the here create. So first what we have to do, we have to add extend with Mockito extension.class. That could be class level annotation, right? And then we have to use here to reference that employee controller, right? Employee, I am writing the test case for employee controller. So employee controller I will use here as an inject mock, and employee service I will use as a mock here. So as I told you, right, whichever class we are using as a reference inside this class, that could be at mock, and that is the class for them we are writing the test case, that could be inject mock, right? After that what happened, right, I am using one mock MVC class because that is also used, right, to get the specific type of request and what is the request, what is the response, what type of method we are using, get, post, put. For that purpose we will use mock MVC. And object mapper is something converting Java to JSON object, something like that, right? So here we are using add before each. So add before each we are using one kind of setup method. So we know that this method will execute for before every test case. So what we are doing here we are using mock MVC builder dot standard standalone setup, and what we are passing here, we are passing controller reference dot set controller advice. So it will set the advice, and dot build. So build is one kind of design pattern here, right, that will create object of mock MVC here. So mock builder, so mock builder will having a standalone setup, right? So here we are passing the employee controller, and it will create the returning object of the mock MVC, right? And here we are passing this dot object mapper equal to new object mapper. So we are getting object of object mapper also. So we have to pass mock MVC builder, right? So you can see what the mock MVC builder does. See the definition here, mock MVC builder. What does it do? Mock MVC builder is utility class, is spring test, in spring test, right, used to manually build a mock MVC. So whenever you want to build a mock MVC, right, then only we have to use mock MVC builder. So it is having some method like standalone, which will take a class name, right, and then it will build also. So that means build means creating the object only. So mock MVC builder will help you to create object of mock MVC. So same thing we are doing here, if you can understand with the definition, right? So mock MVC builder is responsible to create object of mock MVC, right? It is building here, and we are creating object of object mapper. Now let's come to here create test. So what is the method name here I have? The method name is create only, right? So for create, what I will do, I will write the test case like create test, and here it is throwing exception because some method does throw exception, right? So that's why we have throw. And here you can see I'm using mock MVC dot perform. So perform is a method of mock MVC. You can open it. What does it do? It is returning some result action, and it is taking some request builder, right? So that is a predefined method only, that is coming from the mock MVC dot class, right? So what it is taking perform, it is taking what type of request we have. So right now we have a request is type of post only. We have a request is type of post, and here we are passing employee slash create, right? So employee slash create is what? It is the endpoint to call that particular method. So we are writing the test case for which particular method? We are writing the test case for this create method. What is the endpoint for that? We have an employee and employee slash create. So you have to think that why we write the test cases. Like for example, if you want to test this functionality of this method, right? What we will do? We will go to the postman, we will write some endpoint, and we will hit this send button. Then this data will go to the controller, and this controller will respond accordingly. This control will respond accordingly. But what happen here? If I will do that, right, that time it is coming from the postman, but we have to check the same feature with the test case also. So same thing which we are doing through the postman, right? Same thing I will do from the test also, test class also. So same thing I will pass from there, and that will go to this controller class and will perform all the activity. I will tell you we can debug that as well. How will we debug that also, I will let you know. So first what we are doing here, mockmbc.perform, and we are writing here for what is the method we are taking. So this method is taking like post request only, right? Post request and endpoint, right? Endpoint, and then we are using here content type. So content type is application JSON content. What is the content? Object mapper, that is write value as a string, right? So it will whatever we are getting. So here it is taking what is the input of it, what it is returning, right? So as you can see, right, here we are getting what? Object mapper dot write value as a string, and it is taking get employee. So get employee is one object that I created here, right, which is returning an employee type, and here I created simple object of it, and we are passing the value on it like 1 ln 1 2 3 4 5 and USA. So this object will be ready, and this object will pass under this write value as a string. So we know that object mapper is what? It is converting Java object to JSON object, right? So that request is going with the postman look like that. So you can think like this employee object that we have created here, right, that will convert into a JSON, something like that, and we are checking accept media type application dot JSON, application underscore JSON, and at the end we will and accept status dot is okay. So what status is returning is okay. So we have is created is accept, right? So that we have to think accordingly. Like here we are using what? HTTP status dot okay. If it is something else, then we have to pass the same here also, right? So that is a kind of simple operation that we have to perform. One thing that you have to understand, that why we are passing here get employee, right? And how can we decide what should be passed here? So that could be the return value actually here for method which we are passing. So you can see here in employee controller, right, we have employee service dot create. What create is taking? It is taking employee object as a parameter, right? So whatever it is taking employee as a parameter, the same we are passing here also. Same we are passing here also in the form of get employee. Clear it? Then this part is ready. So this mock MVC, we have completed the endpoint part. Endpoint part means I am talking about this part. So I have written the test case for just give me a minute, guys. So inside that we have write this. So here we are writing the test case, right? So this part is over. Employee service dot create as well as this response entry return also. But we have to call this create method also. So create method is, we have a two create method, right? One is from the service, one is from the controller itself. On the top of that we are writing the test case, right? So for that what we will do, we will write here verify, something like that, right? So we are writing verify. So what verify does take? What it is taking? Employee service. Employee service having a method like create, right? What it is taking? It is taking employee dot class as an argument. So it is verifying that does this create method, see what the create method is talking. It is talking about employee service create method. So employee service create method, what it is doing? It is simply taking any employee object. So we can pass any employee object. So this part is over now. So here till that what we are doing, we are just simply writing the test case for the request. So here it is for request, right? And that is for the endpoint. So we have a request here, right? With the request, what it is taking? Request body, right? request body is taking as employee, so that's why we are passing employee there. And what is the endpoint that we have, that we are passing here also. Same thing, endpoint, and what is the request we are getting. So this part we are doing only for request, this part we are doing for kind of response, and this part we are writing for calling the service method, which is verifying does it take that create or not, right? So that is a way we do write the test cases for the methods. So this time we are writing this test case for the create test, right? Let me run this. So how to run this test case? At the test annotation, if you will keep it right, that means test case is ready. And if you want to run it right, you can just click on run this test case. So this time this test case is ready and it is done, right? You can see here it is passing here, one test case pass. So that way it will test case perform and it will pass also. So here only you can get it is a passing or failing, right? So we have created the test case successfully for a one particular method which is having a create test, right? We will write the test cases for other method also, so that we will cover in the next session, right, or next video. So thanks for watching guys. If you like the video, please subscribe it. Thank you, take care, bye bye.